If there were a Olympics for the best in sports media, my guest today might have already won a gold medal. Paul Bronsteader is with me, coordinating producer with Paragon Marketing Group, and he has worked a lot of Olympics, NBC Sports Group, and beyond. And we're going to tell his story here on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio, and I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Paul, I'm excited to do this with you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Thanks for making it happen.
Hey, thanks for reaching out, Bryan. It should be a lot of fun. Appreciate you.
I hear it's pretty fun when you're the chef in the house. So before we go, knee deep into everything career-wise, we're obviously going to touch on your personal life as well. If I'm enjoying something that you have cooked, what is your best dish and why are you so good at being a chef?
Oh, boy. Well, I think my current thing might be shish kebab. It's summer. Let's marinate some meat and throw it on the grill. So that's a really good one. But also the vegetables and all of that goes with it. I like these, and I've been having shish kebab for a long time. I used to request it for my birthday when I was a kid. So my mom's been making it for me since I was like 5, and I still use her recipe. And so it's really, really, really good. Now I use probably a better cut of meat than she did, but but it's the marinade is what makes the whole thing.
When you're organizing a meal and you're doing your magical work in the kitchen, how can you find that the steps you take and the organization that comes with putting things together, that you find that parallels with you sort of having to be an assembler in sports media and putting on a production and not making a meal, but making a broadcast?
Yeah, it's definitely a parallel path with those two things, because you have to plan ahead when you go to the store to get all the ingredients, but you also have to plan ahead for all of your shows that you're going to be working on in the coming year, weeks, months, whatever it is. We plan so far ahead for shows that once you get there, it's just second nature. And that's kind of how both of them are. If you've made a meal enough, you can do it without even thinking about it. You don't even need the recipe. So now you're at that point in your career that you don't need that recipe. You just need to know what goes into it. And it's very, very similar.
If I were to talk to one of your colleagues and I asked them, what's Paul's best ingredient, his best talent, what are they going to tell me?
I think keeping the crew together. So it's important for me to have the whole crew get together outside of the show or the area and to get to know each other as a person, because I think that makes all of the rest of your shows better. If you know your colleagues on a different level, not just in the TV truck or in the boardroom or whatever, it just makes people respond to you when you're working better, and they know you have each other's back.
How have you found through this journey of yours that you've had your back in times of persistence when that was needed, or perseverance when, as testing as sometimes the business can be, you had your own back and you were able to, through that process, learn about yourself on a deep level, just as you were saying that getting to know others around you on a deep level is paramount to a good broadcast. But how have you learned about yourself through this journey for yourself?
I think leaving a full-time job and going out and into the freelance world, you have to take a huge leap because you have no idea what's going to happen. And that was definitely one of the biggest things that and challenges that I had in our business. It makes you way better. You look at the situations you've been in, good or bad, and you draw on even bad situations and go, I went through that. This is nothing. I can get through this. We lost transmission on a show, or the graphics machine goes out, or something like that. That's nothing. That's that's just people, and most people at home don't even know that's happening.
Yeah.
So it's a huge deal to you, but in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. And once you keep that perspective, I think that's really big, because it's not, your life is way different. You shouldn't be defined as your work, as what you do for work. You should be defined for who you are as a person. And if you can work through that stuff, highs and lows, then it makes you a better person.
Why do you think, though, Paul, that so many in this business feel that they need to be defined by their work? In other words, they are their work.
I think because, if you're at a dinner party and you're talking with a group of people and they have no idea who you are and you have no idea who they are, and it always gets to, what do you do? What do you do? And you say, and the guy or next to you says, well, I'm a financial advisor, and the woman next to you says, I'm a nurse, and you say, I produce sports television. They want to know about that, because that they don't meet somebody that does that every single day. So I think a lot of that is because our job is really kind of cool, that people want to know about that. So I think some people want to define themselves as something that's pretty cool, because maybe that's the coolest thing in their life. I don't know, but I'm not saying that it's not cool, because it really is. It's fun. Like, that's another thing. It's a fun job. It changes all the time. You travel. You're not just stuck in an office with fluorescent lights blazing and you're working on an Excel spreadsheet. I do that, but I also get to travel a lot and have fun.
So there's that thrill that you mentioned of working in such a neat business, and people that work other jobs, they, like you said, they don't run into sports television producers all the time. And with that comes this glitz and this pride. And sometimes people can get, like we were talking about, enraptured by what they do in this field. How have you been able to sort of separate and love what you do, but also realize that it's not everything about you, and how taking that mindset has made you a better father, or, made you a better person overall?
I think part of it is that it's really hard for me to talk about myself. So I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, I want everybody to know what I do.
Yeah.
But I also like to help people. I used to have a big old garden. That was at our church, and we would grow vegetables and donate it all to the local food bank. So, like, I would rather have that define me, or going on a trip to do repairs for people's homes. Like, that's the stuff I would rather say that I do more than work in sports TV. I mean, like I said, it's a great business, and I have wonderful friends and colleagues that I work with all the time. But I think, you have to step away from that to make sure that you're a well-rounded individual.
Because you've become a well-rounded individual, in that you have interests all around besides your love of sports media, how has that mindset sort of enabled your daughter to want to get into the business? And how it wasn't like you just said, hey, you should really do this, but you did what you did, and then you let her see what you did, and then she found that fascination herself.
Right. I think I would take her with me on trips, or she would see me editing, because I was freelance. I would work at home. So she would see me I used to hold her and edit when she was an infant.
Oh.
So, like, she's grown up with me, seeing me work at home. And then she took an interest in editing and wanted to do stuff. So I started on iMovie. And then she's like, this is not enough for me. I need something better. So we did Premiere. And then we did, like, Final Cut Pro before it went to Final Cut X. And so she really loved doing that and creating. And then she just kind of found the eye, for photography or video or whatever. And she started doing her own stuff. So I never pushed her into it. I think she just saw what I was doing, and I was having fun, and it was cool to make up your own stuff and to see how you could shape a project or something, how just one edit could change. And she really liked that, so she's come a long way for sure and does really good work herself.
You told
That's
this.
that's
Oh,
just a plug for her.
well, deservedly so, and we're gonna obviously monitor her progress and what she does in this business. Looking forward to seeing all that she does. But you told me this story before we started, Paul, about how one time she really wanted to help you edit.
Oh yeah, she. I think I was working on I think it was a Big Ten swimming and diving championship show, and I had the whole edit laid out, the whole timeline. The show was almost done. It may have been done, and I was in my basement, and I was just like, I was taking a break. I think I was outside raking leaves or something, and I came back in, and I noticed that my like all my graphics were off my top line of my timeline. I was like, what is going on? And she was sitting at my keyboard, and the keyboards are very colorful. That I was using an Avid at that point. And the keyboards were really colorful. So she's like, I just wanted to help. And she started pressing the colored buttons. And so it took me probably 8 or 10 hours to redo it all. But how do you get mad at a 3-year-old for doing that? At least I had the time to do it. It was frustrating at that time, but that's like an early on. She just wanted to be with me and help me. So it was hard. It was hard to get mad at her, but it was also frustrating working through the night to get it done.
The fatherly approach that you have taken with her and everybody in your family, in how I hear those stories about your daughter at so young, just wanting to help you and being receptive to you and being tapped into what you're doing and your energy. What was sort of your emphasis as a dad early on to where you were hoping that your kids, to what you said about earlier, Paul, and that you get so much fulfillment in helping others and giving back, that you wanted to bestow that early on your children too?
So I was the one, my wife was the one that worked full time, and she got the benefits, TV guy. And so I was Mr. Mom for several days a week. So we did everything together. I took her to her story time. I took her to preschool. I did all that. I had her friends over. All of that stuff. So we have a really strong relationship from day one, because we were together so much. Like we went to a daddy-daughter dance once, and she's like, why are we here? I said, well, because we're daddy-daughter. She's like, I see you all the time. This is for those people that don't see their girls all the time. And she's like, let's just go home. So we are still very close and do a lot of stuff together. And it's fun to hear her stories about the business and some of the stuff she's had to overcome, some of the excitement she's had doing some stuff, and just the eye-opening things that she's done in the business, just at a small level, and she's so excited about it. So it bodes well for her.
I can't even imagine the excitement and the living vicariously through her that you're having here, knowing that she, on her own volition, is going down your footsteps. Paul Bronsteader is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. Working on rodeo, that is a unique broadcast. And to know how much it means to you, we can see behind you what you have going on there.
Yeah, that's a poster from National Finals Rodeo.
Wow.
And then this is Kentucky Derby. Same artist.
So you have worked with livestock and horses and doing broadcasts. Clearly, I think we even forgot to talk about that time that there was something to do with Churchill Downs and you being a chef, or you doing something there. But like when you're staging, let's just go to the rodeo thing. How do you look at that as a broadcast, and how does it differ from any other thing that you've put on air?
That was I started working on the rodeo. That was kind of my first assignment out of school once I got in with Wintercom. So I was there about 6 months, and they're like, we need somebody else to go to the national finals rodeo. Do you want to go? I'm like, sure, I'll go. It's 10 days in Vegas. Why not? So I went, and I had no idea about rodeo. I'm a city kid. I don't know about any of this stuff, but it was really, really fun. And the contestants were genuine, and the announcers were great, and because they're all rodeo people. And I just started working through that with them. So that was like my normal production. It wasn't like I was coming from a football background or baseball. It was rodeo was my first thing, and I just continued with that from 94 to 2008. So those were my big things that I did. So, with the help of like a really, really, like one guy that was my mentor, David Newman from Wintercom, he taught me so much about it. He probably doesn't think he did, but just watching him, he taught me a lot about being in the business, no matter what kind of show you're doing, that you should know everybody's position, a little bit of what everybody does in the truck, and recognize when they're having a bad day or when they can help you or anything like that, just so you know what they're going through. And that really helped me out to be good to the crew, which goes without saying. It should go without saying, but it doesn't always happen like that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but like rodeo is definitely different because the timing of that show, like a live show for rodeo, you have 120 contestants in 15 people in each. So that's 8 events, and it all runs in an hour and 45 minutes. But I have a 2.5 hour show. So we have to use everybody. So we wouldn't be live. We would just dip to black and come back up. And it was just ESPN would do a quick turnaround on it. So we would be ending as we were starting, the broadcast was starting. So that was a challenge. And you could do nothing, like you couldn't do anything extra because it was person after person after person. The only time you had a break was between events. So you learn how to think like that helped me later in my career because you thought you had to think really, 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 really fast. Because if you wanted to get in a promo or a replay or do something else, do a sideline report or something, you had to think about that like 3 people ahead of when you wanted to do it and let everybody know. Not just like, oh, after this pitch, we're going to do this. Or after this play, we're going to do this. We know we're going to do that. How are we going to do it? We're going to double box it. We're going to just go full to them. What are we going to do? So there was lots of that kind of planning, and it just makes you a better producer by having to think that much faster.
And how has that, speaking with conviction and knowing what you're doing more so than, I mean, you always did, but just to say that now you know where you want to hit your promos, and just to be that person in the production truck that is that leader that really has command of the room. How do you find that those you work with are responsive to that?
They're very responsive because you go in with the confidence that you know what you're doing. You don't go in yelling and screaming because that's no good. Nobody's going to respond to that. It's that if they think you know what you have going on, if they see you're well prepared, if they walk in and they have a format and the graphics list and everything that I want to get done, and they have that when they walk in, and I'm already there, greeting them and like ready for questions, whatever you want, then they know that they're in good hands. Even if I haven't worked with you before, I hope that they think they're in good hands.
You've created that environment of being in good hands over the course of your career. And how did that come out during your time in say Salt Lake City and working these Olympics?
That, working the Olympics, I let people I know I worked with before that I wanted to work the Olympics. So the first one, I got a call 2 weeks before the games and said, will you come work with us? I was like, yeah, I'll come work with you. So the woman that hired me, she was an associate producer for me on some horse racing shows. So I was like, yeah, I'll come work with you, Steph, no problem. And I was in the highlights area for the world feed. So we would we each got our own, like 3 or 4 venues that were responsible for cutting highlights every day for just a highlight show that went out to the world. And it just played no commentary, no nothing. It was just highlights and results pages and all that. So you could have aired that with a commentator reading the cut sheet, no problem. So that was fun. And it got me kind of hooked on the Olympics. I was hooked already from the age of 6, but to work it, I thought I had really hit the top for sure.
What lured you in at 6 years old?
Dorothy Hamill. Like I couldn't get enough of that. And I hate figure skating. Like I hate it. But I like 6 years old and Dorothy Hamill, I was like, wow, look at that. So it seems weird, but that, and then also like they would do they were on ABC at that point, and there was the globe that they would spin, and there was like, it was an animation, and then there was like a star in Austria or something. And they would go do a story on this Austrian skier, and they would shoot it in the summer, and they're on this mountain vista, that's just beautiful. I'm like, wow, look at this. Like this is happening I had no idea at 6 that all this stuff was in the rest of the world. So it was a glimpse into the world that was positive, that it was, a sports thing, that there's all these different sports, and I want to get involved in this.
So going off what you just said about what got you and perked your interest in sports and broadcasting and in the Olympics, how much of your passion, your drive, and the driving force of what you're doing is to uncover things to people so that they get to see that they might not know what's out there, and that you are sort of like the arbiter in doing that?
But I think when I've had the opportunity to travel to the Olympics and all the different locations, it's because from Salt Lake in 2002 through Pyeongchang in 2018, I went to every Olympics. So the travel in China and Italy and South Korea, that really opened my eyes to how the world is. And I tried to portray that to, it definitely changed my life. So going back to Emma, she definitely has that bug, because she saw how maybe I came back and changed a little bit, or,
Wow.
was like easy to not change, but like they kind of helped define who I am, because you see people in the rest of the world, how they're living and how they're happy. And it's like, how can I bring some of that back with me? And it just like, that was the part that was the best for me. Yeah, I went and did work, but I was there for the experience, to be just in the culture of the country I was in. I wanted to go to the farmers markets and be with the locals at, find the places to go to eat where the locals went, not where everybody was flocking to. I would walk a long way, like away from everybody, and try to find different places to eat, because that's how you can really get involved in the and get immersed in the culture.
If you didn't take that approach, how would your perspective be different? Yeah.
I would feel sorry for somebody who doesn't want to at least do a little bit, because we could have eaten at the IBC International Broadcast Center every meal that we had. We could have, because NBC always had a really nice commissary that we could go to, and you could eat 12 meals a day if you wanted to. But it wasn't about that. It was about the experience. And if you don't have that attitude, like I'm going to get out and see something new, then that's your loss. And it shouldn't be like that, but you should want to experience different things. And, there were a lot of my colleagues that went to McDonald's a whole lot. So, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Paul, as we wrap this conversation up, unquestionably, when you've got out and traveled and worked these events and done the Olympics and been international, I can't imagine how that increases your just abilities to be artistic and to storytell because of this empathy gene that you have for other cultures and other people and just how societies are different around the world. And no wonder you've got this fine perspective, and it's really cool to see how much your daughter is involved as well in the business. And as I finish this up, I will say this: as we start out the conversation and talking about you cooking, anybody who's watching this, I guarantee you what Paul cooks is much better than McDonald's.
Yeah,
Much better than McDonald's.
I hope so.
Yeah. Paul Bronsteader, I'm Bryan Fenley. Paul, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, Brian. It was fun. Appreciate it.